the next few minutes, you'll discover a mindset shift that can completely change how you handle your life in 2025. This isn't theory or motivation that fades after an hour. It's practical, proven, and actionable guidance you can start using today to guarantee progress, build discipline, and create results you can see. You'll learn how to take full control of your actions, stop letting excuses run your day, focus only on what truly matters, and turn daily habits into the foundation of your identity. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to remove distractions, act immediately without waiting for motivation, and make consistency non-negotiable. These principles will give you clarity, energy, and confidence to finally get the results you've been waiting for. Subscribe to Audiobook Shift now and get ready to start 2025 with the mindset that guarantees success. Number 1, decide you control everything daily. This is not a slogan to paste on a wall and forget. This is a daily agreement you make with yourself each morning, a quiet contract that changes how every small choice stacks into a life. Decide you control everything daily means choosing, moment by moment, to own your actions, your attention, and your responses. It is the clean, stubborn work of refusing victimhood when it shows up and replacing it with clear, disciplined action. Begin with one simple truth. There are things outside your reach and things inside it. The world will hand you weather, traffic, other people's moods, and random setbacks. None of those require surrender. What the world cannot take from you is the way you respond, the next step you take, and the standards you set for yourself. Each morning, when the alarm cuts through sleep, a decision waits. Will the day control you, or will you control your day? Make that decision deliberately. Feel it. Hear the breath move in your chest as the first small claim of control. That breath is a tool. Use it to anchor yourself before choices are made. Practical work begins with a predictable, repeatable start. The body and mind follow patterns. Design a short morning sequence that resets your baseline. Stand, breathe 3 full breaths, and name out loud one thing you control today. It could be, I control my focus for the next 90 minutes, or I control the words I use when responding to stress. Say it steady. Speak it as fact. That posture, verbal, physical, immediate, translates decision into motion. Then choose the single most important action that proves the decision true. Not a vague intention, a concrete action. Write the first sentence. Make the call. Start the 15-minute deep work block. Do it before the mind has the chance to dilute the decision with excuses. Control starts small and grows. Use short decision rules that remove negotiation. 1 rule, the 2-minute commitment. When a task will take 2 minutes or less, do it now. When a choice boils down to do it or delay, the default is do. Another rule, the countdown rule. Count backward from 5 and move. The body responds to a countdown the way a runner responds to a starting pistol. The impulse to procrastinate loses momentum when met with a simple mechanical action. Build a daily audit. At noon and again before sleep, answer 3 plain questions in a notebook or notes app. What did I control well today? What did I let control me? What will I change tomorrow? This short audit trains attention. It turns vague regret into specific corrections. It is not therapy. It is engineering. When the audit shows repeated patterns, half-finished tasks, reactive emails, scrolling, and low-energy moments, treat those patterns like a leaking pipe. Fix the drip. Reclaim the water. Control the environment, because the environment directs behavior. Put friction between you and the things that steal time. Phone on airplane mode during focused work blocks. Move the snack drawer out of easy reach. Keep only the tools you need for the task within arm's length. Environment design is not about deprivation. It is about alignment. The fewer small battles you have to fight, the more energy remains for the battles that matter. Replace vague willpower with better architecture. Practice decision hygiene. Every decision carries psychic weight. Small decisions create decision fatigue if left unmanaged. Pre-decide what matters. Pick your work hours, your non-negotiable deep work window, your meal choices for the day, even the outfit for important meetings. When the number of decisions you face is lower, the quality of each selected decision improves. Use routines to conserve willpower. Same breakfast, same 90-minute focus block, same shutdown ritual. Routine is not boredom. It is a reservoir. Control your language. Words shape reality. Replace passive phrasing with active phrasing. Replace I have to with I choose to. Replace I can't with I won't, by choice. This is not magical thinking. It is straightening the spine of your internal narrative. When you say I choose to finish this report, the brain interprets it as a plan. When you say I have to, the brain hears burden and looks for an aid. Practice a short breathing pause before reactive moments. When a difficult email arrives or someone triggers an emotion, create a small ritual. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold 2, exhale 4. In that pause, name the range of options. Respond now calmly, schedule a reply, or let it go. Name the cost of each. The pause builds the space where control lives. Without a pause reflects rules. With a pause, choice wins. Make accountability tangible. Share a specific action with someone you respect and set a follow-up. Send a short message at the end of the day reporting the single action you committed to. The eye of another person sharpens resolve. If direct accountability feels exposing, use a habit tracker. Put a big red X on days you fulfilled the one thing. The visual binary X, or no X, simplifies responsibility and rewards consistency more than vague praise. Use a small metric to measure control. Pick one number: hours of focused work, pages written, sales calls, steps walked. Measure it every day. Numbers remove fog. They translate messy effort into clear feedback. If the number falls, adjust the supporting systems, not your identity. Control is a skill. Metrics show progress and reveal where systems leak. Embrace discomfort as a teacher. Control is not comfort. It is the ability to move toward what matters despite resistance. When discomfort appears, name it. Tiredness, fear, boredom. Labeling weakens its power. Then respond with a tiny, concrete action. If the body wants to quit, lower the intensity but keep moving. If the mind wants to avoid a hard conversation, schedule 5 minutes to prepare bullet points. Small wins restore agency. Each time you do the hard thing in a small way, the brain learns that discomfort is survivable and instructionally valuable. Balance ownership with clear-eyed acceptance. Owning control does not mean blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong. Stoic discipline recognizes the boundary between responsibility and external causes. When a project fails due to factors genuinely outside your control, take what lessons you can extract, and then redirect energy to what you can change next. Never confuse acceptance with passivity. Acceptance is the clarity that prevents wasted effort on immovable problems. Create a ritual of repair. When a day goes off track, and it will, use a short repair practice. Stop. Write one honest line about what went wrong. Name the earliest next corrective action. Do that action within 1 hour, and close the day with one gratitude note. Repair is how control is maintained across imperfect days. It prevents small failures from snowballing into identity collapse. Use sensory anchors to bring intention into the body. Before a work session, hold a mug of warm tea, feel the heat, inhale the aroma, and commit. This block is for deep work. The physical sensations tie the mental decision to a body memory. Over time, the mug, the scent, or the simple act of sitting at a particular chair will cue focus automatically. Anchor rituals are quiet, powerful hacks that bypass argument and engage habit. Remember, language of control is not about dominating others. It is about mastering self. The most controlled person is not a rigid tyrant, but someone who allows more choice to appear. True control expands freedom. When priorities are clear and energy is managed, choices multiply. There is room for rest, connection, and creativity, because the mechanics of the day are trusted. Close each day with a micro-commitment to improvement. Choose one thing to change tomorrow, and one tiny habit to test for a week. Keep it specific and small. Instead of be more productive, try start my work block within 5 minutes of my planned start time. Instead of stop eating junk, try no snacks after 8 p.m. for 7 days. Micro-commitments are the experiments that turn decisions into results. Decide you control everything daily, and then prove the decision with action. This is a daily practice, not a single achievement. The voice that whispers excuses will not disappear. It will get quieter as results accumulate. The first weeks are the hardest because the brain resists new patterns. Push through with mechanical consistency. The future rewards the accumulation of small, deliberate acts. The life you want is not a sudden arrival. It is a product of repeated choices made in ordinary moments. Finish each week by reviewing the ledger of decisions. Where did control hold? Where did it leak? Make a concrete plan to plug the largest leak for the next week. Use environmental fixes, rules, and accountability to patch it. Celebrate where you stood firm. Each repair and each small win strengthens the muscle of control. Deciding you control everything daily is the foundation of sustainable success. It removes confusion, directs energy, and turns chaos into an instrument. This decision does not promise an easier life. It promises a life that answers more often to your chosen voice. Practice it with patience and rigor, and the small daily wins will build a life that once seemed out of reach. Number 2. Start by identifying the most crucial habits to change. This is the moment where honesty becomes a tool instead of a threat. Most people want growth, but they rarely study their daily patterns with enough clarity to understand why progress feels slow. A habit is not just something you do, it is something that shapes who you are becoming. Every routine you repeat strengthens an identity, and every identity influences the direction of your life. To change your life in a meaningful way, begin with the habits that create the biggest impact, the ones that carry weight, the ones that show up every day and quietly determine the quality of your choices, your discipline, and your confidence. The first step is to remove the haze around your current behaviors. Instead of judging yourself, observe yourself. Pay attention to the routines that run without effort. Notice the actions you repeat without thinking. There are moments in the day when you drift, delay, or react. There are also moments when you rise, focus, and execute. Both types matter. Set aside a short window to track your actions for a full day. Write them down without editing or explaining. The goal is clarity, not perfection. At the end of the day, look at what you captured. You will see patterns. Some patterns lift you. Some drain you. Some are small but persistent, eating away at your focus and self-respect. From that list, highlight the habits that influence everything else. These are the crucial habits. They are not always the most obvious or the most dramatic. Sometimes they are small behaviors with a large ripple effect. Waking up and scrolling your phone may seem harmless, but the habit steals your morning clarity, shifts your mood, and sets a reactive tone for the rest of the day. Skipping your first planned task may feel like a minor delay, but it often triggers guilt, avoidance, and a cycle of inconsistency. Identify the habits that set the tone, not just the habits that take time. A crucial habit usually has 3 characteristics. It repeats daily, it affects your energy or mindset, and it influences your other choices. Think of them as foundational behaviors. When you get them right, everything else becomes more manageable. When you neglect them, everything becomes heavier. This is why identifying them is more important than making a long list of goals. Changing a crucial habit shifts the structure of your day, your mood, and your confidence. Once you've identified the crucial habits, separate them into 2 groups, habits to remove and habits to build. The habits to remove are the ones that quietly sabotage your progress. They may not be catastrophic, but they create friction. A habit like eating late at night disrupts sleep, which disrupts focus, which disrupts productivity. A habit like checking notifications frequently pulls your mind away from deep work and weakens your ability to concentrate. The goal is not to eliminate everything at once, but to choose the single habit that affects the most areas of your life. Then identify the habit to build, the one that offers the greatest return. This could be a morning focus session, an evening preparation ritual, a short exercise routine, or a daily moment of reflection. The best habit to build is the one that strengthens your foundation. It should bring clarity, energy, or direction. It shouldn't rely on motivation or the perfect mood. It should be simple, repeatable, and aligned with your larger goals. To change a habit, break it down to its core. Every habit has a trigger, an action, and a reward. Understanding these 3 parts gives you control. If the trigger is fatigue, the action is snacking, and the reward is comfort, then the habit will keep repeating unless the structure changes. Replace the action with something healthier but still rewarding. If the trigger is boredom, replace the action with movement. If the trigger is stress, replace the action with breathing, stretching, or a short walk. The goal is not to punish yourself, but to redirect the pattern. Create an environment that supports the new habits and weakens the old ones. If you want to reduce distractions, place your phone in another room during work hours. If you want to strengthen a reading habit, keep a book on your desk instead of hidden away. The environment shapes behavior more reliably than willpower. Make it easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing. Small adjustments in your surroundings create massive changes in your behavior. Track your progress each day without judgment. Use a simple checkmark system. When you complete the habit, mark it. When you miss it, review the trigger, not your worth. This process is not a test of perfection but a practice of awareness. Tracking your habits builds accountability, and accountability strengthens identity. When you see a chain of consistent actions, you begin to believe in your ability to follow through. That belief becomes part of who you are. Changing habits requires patience and honesty. You will have days when the old patterns try to reclaim space. Instead of seeing these moments as failures, see them as reminders. They highlight where you need stronger structure, better environment design, or clearer rules. Every time a habit breaks, it exposes the weak point in the pattern. Use that information to adjust your strategy. This is how growth works, through feedback, correction, and renewed commitment. Reflect weekly on your progress. Ask yourself which habits made you stronger, which ones still feel heavy, and which ones created the most noticeable improvements. Sometimes you will find that one new habit lifts multiple areas of your life. Those are the habits worth protecting fiercely. They deserve your attention, your discipline, and your consistency. Treat them as assets. When identifying crucial habits, avoid overwhelming yourself with too many changes at once. Focus on one high-value habit to build and one high-impact habit to remove. Simplicity increases success. Overloaded plans fail not because of lack of desire, but because of lack of structure. Growth thrives in clarity, not chaos. As you refine your habits, your identity begins to shift. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who is organized, someone who is disciplined. This identity becomes a guiding force. It helps you maintain momentum even when motivation fades. You no longer rely on emotional highs to act. You rely on identity, and identity is much stronger than mood. Commit to reviewing your habits monthly with a calm, honest mindset. Look for habits that have become automatic and celebrate them. Replace habits that no longer serve your goals. Add new habits that align with your evolving direction. Your habits should match the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. Identify the crucial habits, refine them with intention, and reinforce them with consistency. These habits become the framework that holds your progress steady. They shape a life that does not swing with emotion or chaos, but moves with purpose. When the crucial habits change, everything changes. Number 3. Prioritize growth over temporary comfort. Number 3. Prioritize growth over temporary comfort. Growth asks more from you than comfort ever will. Comfort is easy, familiar, and predictable. Growth is demanding, uncomfortable, and often inconvenient. The challenge is that comfort feels good right now, while growth feels good later. That gap between now and later is where most people lose themselves. They choose the small relief that pulls them backward instead of the deliberate effort that moves them forward. The goal is not to live without comfort, but to stop letting comfort decide your direction. When growth becomes your priority, your decisions shift, your discipline strengthens, and your identity begins to evolve into someone who does not run from challenge, but moves toward it with purpose. Start by understanding the real cost of comfort. Temporary comfort is not free. Every time you choose the easier option, you trade long-term progress for short-term relief. Hitting the snooze button steals your momentum. Avoiding a difficult conversation weakens your boundaries. Staying inside your routines prevents you from discovering what you're capable of. The comfort you choose today becomes the limit you face tomorrow. When you recognize this trade, your view of comfort changes. It stops being a harmless habit and becomes a barrier worth removing. Growth, on the other hand, is not pleasant at the beginning. It stretches your patience, tests your confidence, and forces you into unfamiliar territory. But growth rewards you in ways comfort never can. Growth builds resilience, clarity, and self-respect. Growth gives you a deeper sense of purpose. It strengthens the belief that you can handle hard things. Each time you lean into discomfort with intention, you gain a new layer of strength. The process may feel heavy, but the outcome feels powerful. To prioritize growth, start by identifying the situations where comfort usually wins. These moments are predictable. They often appear when you feel tired, overwhelmed, uncertain, or bored. Notice the pattern. If you avoid tasks when they feel too big, break them down. If you escape into distractions when your energy drops, introduce structure. The goal is not to eliminate comfort entirely, but to recognize when comfort shows up as avoidance. Awareness gives you the opportunity to choose growth consciously, rather than falling into comfort accidentally. Create a rule that prioritizes growth in real time. When faced with two choices, one that stretches you and one that soothes you, choose the option that pushes you forward. Not every time, but most of the time. Growth requires repetition. You build the habit of choosing the harder but wiser path. Over time, the resistance weakens. The discomfort becomes familiar, even manageable. What once felt intimidating becomes part of your new normal. This shift is how growth becomes sustainable. Strengthen this rule by using small, practical actions. If you tend to quit when a task feels difficult, add 5 more minutes before stopping. Those 5 minutes build stamina. If you hesitate before starting something important, count down from 5 and begin. This breaks the cycle of delay. If a challenge triggers self-doubt, shift your attention from how you feel to what needs to be done. Growth requires action, not emotion. The more you act in the presence of discomfort, the less power discomfort has. Develop a mindset that sees discomfort as a signal, not a danger. Discomfort often points directly to the areas where growth is needed. When something makes you nervous, it is usually because it holds meaning. When something challenges you, it is often because it expands your limits. Instead of turning away from these signals, study them. Ask what they reveal about your fears, your patterns, and your potential. Discomfort is information. Design your environment to support growth. Comfort will always tempt you, unless you create surroundings that encourage progress. Remove distractions that take you off track. Replace low-value activities with routines that challenge you. Keep visual reminders of your goals where you can see them. Environment shapes behavior more reliably than motivation. When your environment nudges you toward growth, you make fewer impulsive choices based on comfort. Shift your self-talk to reflect your commitment. The language you use matters. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," say, "This is difficult but possible." Instead of saying, "I'm scared of messing this up," say, "This is the next step in becoming stronger." Your words influence your actions. The more you speak from a growth-focused perspective, the easier it becomes to make decisions that align with long-term progress. Seek out challenges intentionally. Growth hides in places where effort is required. Take on responsibilities slightly beyond your current skill. Try activities that demand focus, patience, or courage. Say yes to opportunities that make you a bit uneasy. These experiences reshape your self-image. You begin to see yourself as someone who evolves, adapts, and improves. That identity shift is more powerful than any moment of comfort. Create a habit of reflection. At the end of each day, review the choices you made. Identify moments when you chose comfort and moments when you chose growth. Do not judge yourself. Use the information to refine your behavior tomorrow. Reflection allows growth to become measurable. It turns intention into self-awareness and self-awareness into progress. Reward yourself for choosing growth. Acknowledge the effort you put in. Celebrate the times you stayed disciplined when it would have been easier to give up. Growth is not a single leap. It is the accumulation of consistent choices. Recognizing those choices reinforces the identity you are building. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. Build tolerance for delayed gratification. Growth rarely provides instant reward. It works beneath the surface, shaping your mindset and strengthening your character. Be patient with the process. Understand that the value of growth appears in the long term, often when you least expect it. The things worth achieving take time. When you accept this truth, you stop demanding quick results and start committing to consistent improvement. Surround yourself with people who value growth. Comfort-seeking environments make comfort feel normal. Growth-seeking environments make challenge feel necessary. Engage with individuals who hold themselves to higher standards, who push themselves, who speak about goals in a serious and intentional way. Their presence influences your behavior. Their energy supports your ambition. Growth accelerates in the right company. Stay committed when comfort tries to reclaim space. It will happen. Old habits will reappear. Your mind will try to protect you from effort by offering shortcuts, excuses, or distractions. Expect this resistance. Recognize it, but do not surrender to it. Each time you move through discomfort, you strengthen the mental pathway that supports discipline. This is how you shift from comfort-driven living to growth-driven living. Choose growth, not because it is easy, but because it leads you somewhere meaningful. Comfort keeps you where you are. Growth moves you toward who you could be. Every decision between comfort and growth shapes your future. The more consistently you choose growth, the more your life expands. You gain clarity, capability, and confidence. You become someone who invests in progress over relief. Someone who understands that growth is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. Number 4, make discipline your default setting. Discipline becomes powerful when it stops being something you chase and becomes something you live by without negotiation. Most people think discipline is a dramatic force, something fueled by motivation or inspiration. But real discipline is quiet, it is stable. It is a pattern of actions repeated so consistently that they no longer require emotional effort. Discipline becomes the foundation you stand on, not the challenge you resist. When discipline becomes your default setting, you stop depending on how you feel and start relying on who you are becoming. The goal is to make discipline your natural state, not a rare state you use only when life forces you to. Begin with the idea that discipline is not about intensity but about reliability. Anyone can be disciplined for a day when they feel inspired. Anyone can push themselves for a week when they feel motivated. What separates lasting progress from temporary effort is the ability to act even when everything in you prefers comfort. When discipline becomes automatic, your actions no longer rely on mood swings or energy levels. You operate from clarity. You follow a structure you built intentionally. You behave like someone who honors their commitments, even in silence. To make discipline your default, remove the concept of negotiation. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you weaken the habit. You create space for excuses to breathe. When you decide beforehand that certain actions are non-negotiable, you eliminate the mental battle. For example, if your rule is that you begin your first task at a specific time, you follow it no matter how tired or distracted you feel. The decision is already made. Your job is simply to execute. This removes the emotional noise and protects the consistency that discipline requires. Build discipline around routines that protect your energy and focus. A powerful routine does not have to be complicated. It only has to be predictable. A strong morning routine sets the tone for how the rest of the day unfolds. Begin with small, structured actions that ground you. A consistent wake-up time, a few minutes of stillness, and a clear first task create momentum. When the first hour of your day is controlled, the rest of the day becomes easier to manage. Discipline thrives in systems, not chaos. The next step is to strengthen your relationship with discomfort. Discipline often requires doing things you do not want to do in the moment. Instead of treating discomfort as a threat, view it as a signal that you are working in the right direction. Discomfort is not punishment, it is training. Every time you push through resistance, you reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. The more often you break through the initial discomfort, the more natural it becomes. The brain learns that effort is safe, manageable, and beneficial. Use structure to reduce distraction. Distraction weakens discipline more than anything else. Identify the sources of distraction in your environment and remove them before they can interrupt you. Put your phone in another room during important work. Turn off notifications. Keep your workspace clean. When your environment supports discipline, you spend less energy resisting temptations. This keeps your focus sharp and your actions aligned with your goals. Set clear rules that direct your behavior. Rules simplify decision-making. They act as guardrails that keep you on track. These rules do not have to be extreme. They only need to be intentional. A rule like no social media until after completing my main task preserves your mental clarity. A rule like exercise for at least 10 minutes daily ensures you stay active even on difficult days. Simple rules lead to strong discipline because they remove indecision. Create a system of checkpoints throughout your day. These checkpoints help you evaluate whether you are staying aligned with your commitments. A midday check-in keeps you from drifting too far into distraction. An evening review helps you analyze what worked well and what needs to be adjusted. These small moments of awareness strengthen discipline because they keep you connected to your responsibilities. Discipline is not built from one large decision, but from many small choices repeated throughout the day. Respect the power of consistency. Discipline does not require perfection. It requires persistence. When you miss a day or fall short, return immediately. Do not wait until the next week or the next month. The faster you return to your structure, the stronger your discipline becomes. The ability to recover quickly is a hallmark of disciplined individuals. They do not collapse after setbacks. They reset. They continue. They protect the momentum they worked hard to create. Track your disciplined actions in a simple way. Use a calendar, notebook, or digital list to mark the days when you follow through on key habits. Seeing your progress visually strengthens your desire to maintain the streak. This builds internal pressure to stay consistent. The longer the streak grows, the more meaningful it becomes. Breaking it feels costly. Maintaining it feels rewarding. This visual reinforcement shapes discipline into a pattern you begin to crave rather than resist. Align your actions with a deeper purpose. Discipline becomes easier when it is driven by meaning. Know why your actions matter. When your mind understands the long-term reward behind your effort, the short-term discomfort becomes easier to manage. Connect your habits to the type of person you want to be. Connect your routines to the future you are building. When discipline is tied to identity and purpose, it becomes far more sustainable. Practice small acts of discipline in low-stakes moments. Every time you choose the harder option, you strengthen the mental muscle that supports discipline. When you finish a task instead of leaving it half done, you train follow-through. When you clean your workspace instead of putting it off, you reinforce order. When you resist the impulse to procrastinate, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your cravings. These small acts accumulate. They become part of you. Protect your standards. When you set high standards for yourself, treat them with respect. Do not lower them when life becomes stressful. Instead, adjust your strategy while keeping the standard intact. If you cannot complete your usual workout, do a shorter version. If you cannot achieve your entire daily plan, complete the most essential part. This approach preserves discipline even during difficult periods. It prevents you from slipping into all or nothing thinking. Discipline grows when you surround yourself with people who value structure and self-control. Energy is contagious. When you spend time with individuals who set goals and work steadily toward them, your own standards rise. Seek out people who take their commitments seriously. Their behavior reinforces your own. Their mindset strengthens yours. Social environments can either sharpen your discipline or erode it. Choose environments that sharpen you. Remember that discipline is freedom. It frees you from impulsiveness, instability, and regret. It frees you from the cycle of starting and stopping. It frees you from the burden of constantly trying to catch up. When discipline becomes your default setting, life becomes more predictable, more intentional, and more satisfying. You move through your days with clarity instead of confusion. Your progress becomes steady instead of sporadic. Make discipline the way you operate, not the exception. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. At first, discipline feels heavy. Over time, it feels normal. Eventually, it becomes the path of least resistance. This transformation is not sudden. It is built through deliberate daily choices that prove to yourself that you can be trusted with your own growth. When discipline becomes your default setting, success stops being a distant idea and becomes the inevitable outcome of who you are. Number 5, treat consistency as non-negotiable. When you decide that consistency is no longer optional, everything in your life starts to move differently. You stop giving yourself chances to delay what needs to be done. You stop creating stories about why you can't start yet. You stop waiting for the right moment, because you know the right moment is the one in front of you. Treating consistency as non-negotiable means you stop giving yourself an escape route every time life becomes a little uncomfortable. You hold yourself to a standard that doesn't disappear because you feel tired, annoyed, unmotivated, or distracted. You build a routine that is stable enough to keep you grounded and flexible enough to work even on chaotic days. You start to realize that the biggest enemy of your goals isn't difficulty, it's inconsistency. You can handle difficult tasks. You've done hard things before, but the reason most people stay stuck is because they show up once, twice, maybe a week, then disappear for a month. They rely on bursts of short effort instead of building the muscle of showing up whether they feel like it or not. Making consistency non-negotiable pushes you to recognize that progress isn't supposed to be dramatic. It's supposed to be steady. Slow is acceptable. Imperfect is acceptable. Messy is acceptable. What's not acceptable is stopping every time the process feels boring or uncomfortable. When you remove the option to slack off, you stop judging yourself for not being perfect and start applauding yourself for staying in motion. The secret is in committing to the minimum standards you can hit every single day, even on your worst days. The person who does a small amount every day, without fail, beats the person who gives 200% effort once a week and burns out. Think about how much of your life would change if you simply stuck with the things you already know would help you. You know that eating well makes you feel better. You know that moving your body lifts your energy. You know that reading, learning, and practicing builds skill. You know that waking up earlier gives you more time. You know that working consistently on your goals produces results. The issue isn't knowledge. The issue is follow-through. When consistency becomes non-negotiable, follow-through is no longer something you attempt. It becomes something you expect from yourself. A lot of people say they want to change, but they treat their habits like suggestions. They treat goals like wishes. They treat discipline like something they'll get around to when life slows down. But life doesn't slow down. Instead of waiting for the world to make room for your goals, you start making room for them yourself. You schedule your priorities before anything else. You commit to small daily actions even when the payoff isn't immediate. You show up even when nobody is watching. You decide that momentum matters more than motivation. The more you repeat this approach, the more you realize consistency is a form of self-respect. It's you proving to yourself that your word means something. You don't promise yourself things and then break those promises the moment they require effort. You don't talk about change without backing it with action. You stop depending on the version of yourself that only shows up when everything feels easy. You build a version of yourself who shows up out of responsibility rather than emotion. At some point, you begin to understand that consistency is not about speed. It's about repetition. You chip away at your goals every day, and those small actions accumulate. People will call it luck. People will think you suddenly improved, but you'll know it came from the days when you quietly stayed disciplined, even when you had every reason to take the day off. Consistency doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It builds quietly until the results become impossible to ignore. Another part of treating consistency as non-negotiable is removing the constant negotiations in your head. You know the ones. The thoughts that say, I'll start later. I'm too tired today. It won't matter if I skip once. I'll make up for it tomorrow. These thoughts seem small, but they stack up fast. They create gaps. They break momentum. They make you believe you have unlimited time when in reality, every skip strengthens the habit of quitting. When consistency becomes a must, those little negotiations lose their power because you stop engaging with them. You act before they can convince you otherwise. You also stop expecting change to happen quickly. You understand that long-term results are built on long-term commitment. You trust the process, even when it's slow. You trust the effort, even when you can't see progress yet. You trust the compounding effect of small wins, stacking day after day. This mindset makes you patient, not passive. You're not sitting around waiting for life to improve. You're taking deliberate steps every day, knowing the reward will come. You're not searching for instant gratification. You're building a life that supports the future you want. Consistency also forces you to clean up the way you manage your time. You stop wasting hours on things that drain your focus. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop letting distractions pull you away from what truly matters. You realize that staying consistent requires boundaries. You start protecting your time the way you protect your money or your energy. You don't allow anyone or anything to interrupt the commitments you've made to yourself. You start seeing your habits as investments that pay off over time. Once this becomes your mindset, you'll notice you don't get discouraged as easily. You don't quit when you feel overwhelmed. You don't fall apart when something unexpected happens. You adjust. You adapt. You keep going. You treat setbacks as part of the journey instead of a reason to stop. The ability to stay consistent even when things aren't ideal separates people who succeed from people who wish they succeeded. And maybe the most important part, when consistency is non-negotiable, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who follows through. You stop seeing your goals as something outside of you. They become aligned with who you are. You become the type of person who doesn't need to restart every month because you never stopped. You become someone who expects progress instead of hoping for it. And because your identity changes, your actions become automatic. You no longer have to push yourself every day. It becomes your normal behavior. When you adopt this mindset, you won't need motivation to get things done. You'll rely on structure, habits, and discipline. You'll trust your own consistency to carry you forward, even when you feel off. You'll look back months later and feel proud that you didn't give up when you had every reason to. That's the power of treating consistency as non-negotiable. It builds a version of you that is reliable, focused, and ready for anything. It guarantees progress because you refuse to let inconsistency slow you down. It sets you apart in a world where most people quit too early, and it creates the kind of strength that stays with you for life. Number 6, focus only on controllable decisions. When you choose to focus only on controllable decisions, you instantly remove a huge amount of stress, frustration, and wasted energy from your life. Most people spend their days worrying about situations they can't shape, outcomes they can't predict, and opinions they can't manage. They lose hours thinking about what others might think, how circumstances might unfold, or whether something will work out perfectly. But once you shift your attention to the actions that are completely within your reach, everything becomes clearer. You stop drowning in possibilities you can't influence. You stop reacting to every little change around you. You start putting your energy into choices that move you forward instead of draining you. The moment you stop trying to control what isn't yours to control, you gain back the space to think clearly. You stop stressing about how people will respond to your effort and start concentrating on the effort itself. You stop worrying about the pace of your progress and start focusing on the quality of your daily actions. You begin asking better questions. Instead of asking, what if things go wrong? You ask, what step can I take right now? Instead of asking, why don't they see my value? You ask, how can I improve my work today? This simple shift makes everything less chaotic. It helps you operate from a place of calm rather than panic. You start to see that you can't control the outcome of every situation, but you can control how prepared you are when opportunities show up. You can control your attitude, your work ethic, and your consistency. You can control your habits, how you spend your time, and the way you respond to setbacks. You can control the discipline you bring to the table and the boundaries you set with distractions. When you focus only on these things, you stop feeling powerless. You start feeling capable because you're finally putting your energy into actions that create real change instead of wasting it on imaginary problems. This mindset shift also stops you from taking things personally. People will have opinions, react emotionally, or make decisions you don't understand, but their behavior is theirs to manage, not yours. When you stop trying to predict or influence their choices, you free yourself from unnecessary emotional weight. You start caring more about meeting your own standards than meeting other people's expectations. You stop adjusting yourself to fit into places you were never meant to fit. You stand stronger in who you are because you're no longer trying to solve problems that aren't yours. Another thing you notice is how much calmer your life becomes when you prioritize controllable decisions. You start cutting out the habit of guessing how everything will play out. You accept that uncertainty is normal, and that trying to control every variable only makes life heavier. Instead of spiraling about worst-case scenarios, you anchor yourself in what you can do right now. This helps you stay grounded even when life gets unpredictable. You start handling challenges with clarity because you're no longer overwhelmed by things outside your influence. You also become more effective. When you concentrate on what you can directly change, your actions become sharper. You make decisions faster because you stop overthinking everything. You stop delaying important tasks because you're not trying to predict every possible outcome. You start trusting yourself more. You stop waiting for permission to move forward. You take responsibility for your progress instead of blaming circumstances for your lack of results. This is where real control comes from, not from trying to manage the world, but from managing yourself. Focusing on controllable decisions also reduces your fear of failure. A lot of people avoid taking action because they're terrified of things going wrong. But when you understand that outcomes aren't fully under your control anyway, you stop trying to guarantee perfection. You aim to give your best effort because that's the part you can actually influence. And when you know you've done what's in your power, you don't carry the same regret. You don't punish yourself for results that were never fully yours to create. You evaluate your effort honestly and adjust where needed. This mindset gives you freedom from comparison too. When you're focused on your own choices, you don't waste time obsessing over someone else's timeline. You stop comparing your progress to people who started earlier or had different advantages. You stop worrying about who is ahead or behind because you realize that your journey only depends on the decisions you make each day. Someone else's success doesn't control your potential. Someone else's speed doesn't determine your destination. You stay in your lane and build at your own pace. Another important change that happens is that you stop resisting reality. You stop fighting situations you can't change. You accept what's in front of you and take responsibility for what comes next. This doesn't mean you settle. It means you understand that progress requires facing the truth, not avoiding it. When something goes wrong, you don't waste time blaming external factors. You focus on the next action you can take to improve the situation. You develop resilience because you're not relying on perfect conditions. You learn to work with what you have instead of waiting for something easier. And when setbacks happen, and they will, you recover faster. Instead of spiraling into frustration, you shift your attention to what you can fix. You don't get stuck complaining about what happened. You assess your options and make your next move. This gives you power over your emotions. Instead of being controlled by reactions, you respond with purpose. You start seeing challenges as situations to manage, rather than threats to fear. Focusing only on controllable decisions also sharpens your discipline. You become more intentional with your actions because you're not wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop using excuses. You stop pointing fingers. You take full ownership of your behavior. When you stick to the part you can control, your choices, you build an internal strength that can't be taken away. You become someone who can handle pressure calmly because you've trained yourself to direct your energy where it actually counts. Over time, this mindset shift changes your entire identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who stays steady even when the world feels unpredictable. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstance. You start trusting that your decisions can shape the direction of your life, even if you can't control every outcome. You build confidence because you're acting from a place of intention rather than fear. You move through life with clarity because you're not pulled in every direction by things you can't influence. The more you practice this approach, the more peaceful your mind becomes. You no longer feel the need to micromanage life. You operate with focus, calmness, and purpose. You make decisions that reflect your goals. You act based on what moves you forward, instead of what worries you. And slowly, you build a life that feels aligned with who you want to be. Not because everything around you is perfect, but because you stopped trying to control the uncontrollable and mastered the one thing that always belongs to you, your choices. Number 7. Stop negotiating with your excuses. Every day you wake up with two voices competing for your attention. One pushes you toward the actions you know will improve your life. The other whispers reasons to delay, avoid, or soften the responsibilities sitting in front of you. This second voice has a smooth tone. It sounds reasonable. It sounds protective. It tries to convince you that waiting is safer than acting, and that comfort is more important than progress. It promises relief while stealing your potential one small decision at a time. When you negotiate with these excuses, you give them space to grow stronger. They start shaping your days, your habits, and eventually your identity. The only way to break this pattern is to stop bargaining with them altogether and commit to a way of living where excuses no longer have a seat at the table. Excuses often appear subtle at first. They show up as a quick thought that says you need a break even though you haven't done enough to earn one. They tell you to start tomorrow because today feels inconvenient. They convince you that a small delay won't matter even though every delay adds up. They encourage you to protect your pride rather than face the discomfort of effort. They tell you that perfection is required before taking action, even though improvement only happens through imperfect attempts. These excuses sound innocent, but they slowly weaken your discipline. The more you reason with them, the more convincing they become. At some point you realize that every excuse is a doorway leading to the same place: stagnation. Nothing changes as long as excuses run the conversation. You repeat familiar patterns, repeat familiar frustrations, and repeat familiar regret. You continue living at the level of your comfort instead of rising to the level of your goals. The shift happens when you stop entertaining the stories you tell yourself to feel safe. You learn that progress doesn't come from waiting for the perfect moment. It comes from acting when it's difficult, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Excuses lose their influence the moment you refuse to negotiate with them. When you cut off negotiation, you take away the space where excuses thrive. They no longer get to argue for what feels good in the moment. They no longer get to convince you that discipline can be postponed. They no longer get to twist small obstacles into valid reasons to back down. Instead, you operate from a place of clarity. You act because the action matters, not because you feel ready. You move forward because the task aligns with your goals, not because the conditions are ideal. This removes the emotional conversation around discipline and replaces it with a simple truth. You do what needs to be done, not what your comfort demands. Excuses grow louder when you feel tired, stressed, or uncertain. That's when your mind starts searching for escape routes. It wants temporary relief. It wants to avoid discomfort. It wants the path that demands the least effort. But this is where strength is built. When you learn to stand firm, even when your mind tries to talk you out of it, you discover a level of self-respect that only comes from following through. Every time you push through resistance, you reinforce the message that your actions are guided by intention rather than emotion. You prove to yourself that you can rely on your decisions, even under pressure. A powerful shift happens when you catch your excuses the moment they show up. You start recognizing their patterns. You notice the tone they use. You see how they try to disguise fear as logic. You understand how they appear right when progress is within reach. Instead of letting them guide you, you pause and question them. You ask whether the thought is protecting your comfort or protecting your growth. You realize that the excuses never truly aim to help you. They aim to keep things easy. And anything that keeps things easy keeps you from evolving. There is a calm sense of control that comes from refusing to give excuses power. You no longer waste energy debating with yourself. You no longer drain your willpower arguing over simple decisions. You remove the internal friction that usually slows people down. You decide once, then you act. This gives your mind clarity and your actions consistency. You no longer wait for motivation. You no longer depend on perfect circumstances. You operate based on commitment, which is far stronger than temporary feeling. As you stop negotiating with excuses, you begin to see how much time you've given away in the past. You recognize all the hours spent overthinking instead of acting. You acknowledge how many opportunities slipped by because you convinced yourself you weren't ready. You see the weight of every moment you avoided discomfort and how those moments added up. This realization isn't meant to create guilt. It's meant to create hunger. A hunger to reclaim the time that remains. A hunger to finally rise to your potential without letting the voice of hesitation slow you down. The people who achieve meaningful progress aren't the ones who never hear excuses. They're the ones who hear them and act anyway. They wake up tired, but they follow through. They feel doubt, but they show up. They face setbacks, but they continue. They don't seek loopholes or try to justify inaction. They decide to lead their lives instead of being dragged by circumstances. When you adopt this mindset, you develop a level of inner stability that excuses cannot penetrate. You become someone who honors your own word. You become someone who doesn't break promises to yourself. Every excuse carries the same message. Choose comfort now and deal with consequences later. But the opposite choice, choosing effort now, creates a different future. It sets you on a path where confidence grows because you consistently honor your responsibilities. You develop a quiet pride that comes from doing the difficult thing when nobody is watching. You start believing in your ability to handle challenges because you've proven you can rise above the urge to give in. The more you practice rejecting excuses, the more natural it becomes. What once felt like a battle becomes a decision made in seconds. Your identity shifts from someone who rationalizes avoidance to someone who takes action as a default behavior. Your life expands because you are no longer shrinking yourself to fit the limits created by convenience or fear. You stop delaying the work that moves you forward. You stop pretending you need more time or better conditions. You step into the version of yourself that is capable, determined, and consistent. The truth is simple but powerful. Excuses lose their power the moment you decide they no longer get to participate in your decision-making. You build a stronger life every time you choose responsibility over comfort, action over hesitation, and progress over avoidance. This refusal becomes a turning point. It shapes your days, strengthens your discipline, and builds the foundation for everything you want to achieve. When you stop negotiating with your excuses, you stop standing in your own way. You finally give yourself the chance to become the person you were always meant to be. Number 8. Build identity through daily actions. Identity is not something you declare with words. It is not built by wishing, imagining, or repeating statements you don't act on. Identity forms through the choices you make when nobody is watching, the habits you return to every day, and the standards you hold yourself to even when it feels difficult. Each small action becomes evidence for the person you are becoming. Every day you are either strengthening the identity you want or reinforcing the identity you want to leave behind. When you understand this, you stop waiting for some distant breakthrough and start shaping who you are through what you do right now. Many people hold an image of who they want to be, but they never connect their daily behavior to that vision. They want discipline, but avoid structure. They want confidence, but avoid discomfort. They want success, but avoid the responsibilities required to earn it. They talk about transformation as if it arrives through inspiration instead of consistent effort. This gap between desire and action is where identity collapses. You cannot expect to build a strong sense of self if your actions contradict the story you want to live. The identity you seek must be supported with daily evidence. Identity becomes solid when your behavior aligns with your intentions. When you say you value growth and then act in ways that reflect that value, you feel grounded. When you commit to responsibilities and follow through, you respect yourself. When you honor your own word, your confidence is not fragile or dependent on circumstances. It is built on the trust you develop with yourself. This trust becomes the foundation for every goal you chase. Without it, you feel unstable. With it, you become steady and resilient. The clearest way to shape identity is through repeated action. If you want to see yourself as focused, you practice focus every day. If you want to see yourself as disciplined, you carry out disciplined behavior even when you don't feel motivated. If you want to see yourself as strong, you do the work that strengthens you. These patterns accumulate and start shaping how you think about yourself. Consistency creates the belief that your actions mean something, and that belief fuels even more disciplined behavior. Every small action reinforces a message. When you complete a task you planned, the message is that you are reliable. When you choose effort over comfort, the message is that you are committed. When you step into discomfort instead of running from it, the message is that you can handle challenge. These messages create a new internal reality. You stop questioning your ability because you have proof. Self-doubt fades because your daily actions build a stronger case for who you are becoming. The mistakes you make do not define you, but the way you respond to them does. Identity doesn't crumble because of a single setback. It weakens when you repeatedly let setbacks become excuses to abandon your path. A strong identity forms when you acknowledge your mistakes, learn from them, and return to aligned action without line. This resilience becomes part of who you are. You stop seeing setbacks as reasons to quit. You see them as reminders to reinforce your habits and continue forward. Your environment also plays a role. You reflect the standards you tolerate and the habits you surround yourself with. When you place yourself in spaces that encourage discipline, growth, and accountability, your identity strengthens. When you choose environments that feed distraction or laziness, your actions naturally drift in that direction. Identity isn't formed in isolation. It grows through the influences you let into your life, the routines you build, and the structure you create. Each element supports the type of person you become. The identity you develop through daily actions is far more stable than the identity based on emotion. Feelings shift constantly. Some days you feel confident. Some days you don't. Some days you feel driven. Some days you feel drained. If your identity depends on your mood, it will change too often to rely on. But if your identity depends on your actions, steady, consistent, disciplined actions, it becomes dependable. It remains stable through good days and difficult ones because your choices remain aligned with who you aim to be. One of the most powerful benefits of building identity through action is the clarity it brings to your goals. You no longer base decisions on temporary desires. You don't need to talk yourself into being productive because your actions have already formed the identity of someone who follows through. You don't need to negotiate with yourself about whether you should do the work. You do it because it's who you are. This eliminates hesitation and uncertainty. Your actions turn into habits, and your habits turn into a lifestyle. This shift transforms how you handle pressure. When challenges arise, you respond from the identity you've built. If you've trained yourself to take responsibility every day, you won't crumble when something goes wrong. You won't panic. You won't fold. You will step into the situation with the same steady mindset you practice daily. This makes your identity unshakable. It doesn't matter what happens around you because your actions remain consistent. You guide your life through the standards you've built, not through the unpredictable conditions of external events. Identity also expands through the courage to act before you feel fully ready. Waiting for confidence before taking action is one of the biggest traps that holds people back. Confidence grows from proof, not from ideas. The more you act, the more capable you feel. The more capable you feel, the more boldly you act. This cycle builds a strong identity. You become someone who takes initiative, someone who doesn't wait for perfect conditions, someone who moves forward even when uncertainty is present. This is the type of identity that carries you far in life. The key to building identity through daily actions is honesty. You must be honest about the behaviors you're choosing. You must be honest about the habits you've avoided. You must be honest about the gap between the person you want to be and the person you are currently acting like. This honesty gives you direction. It helps you correct your behavior instead of pretending everything is fine. It guides you to make adjustments without shame, because growth is never about perfection. It is about repeatedly choosing the action that supports who you aim to become. Every day becomes an opportunity to reinforce your identity. You don't need massive days of transformation. You need small moments of alignment. Choosing to stay committed when you could quit. Choosing responsibility when you could ignore it. Choosing effort when convenience is easier. These decisions shape your self-image more than any motivational thought ever could. You become what you repeatedly do, and you rise through the behaviors you practice consistently. A strong identity is built one action at a time. It grows as you show yourself that you are capable of more than your excuses, stronger than your fears, and more dedicated than your past habits. When your actions reflect your intentions every day, You transform from the inside out. You stop trying to convince yourself of who you are becoming because your choices make it obvious. This is how identity is built, through deliberate, disciplined, daily actions that align with the life you want to live. Number 9. Remove distractions before they start. Distractions are the silent killers of progress. They appear in subtle ways, disguised as convenience, entertainment, or harmless breaks. Most people think they can handle distractions as they come, believing that willpower alone is enough to resist them. The truth is that relying on willpower is a losing strategy because it drains energy and only works temporarily. Real control comes from removing distractions before they have the chance to take hold. When you stop waiting for focus to appear and start designing your environment to protect it, your productivity, clarity, and ability to follow through skyrocket. Removing distractions is not about restriction. It is about creating space for what truly matters. The first step is recognizing what consistently pulls your attention away. These are patterns, not random occurrences. Maybe your phone constantly tempts you with notifications, apps, or messages. Maybe the environment around you is noisy, cluttered, or overstimulating. Perhaps certain people or activities keep diverting you from your priorities. Distractions are rarely innocent. They shape your day, steal time, and fragment your energy. Awareness is the foundation. Until you know exactly what disrupts you, you cannot defend yourself effectively. Once you identify distractions, take proactive measures to remove them entirely. If your phone is a recurring issue, put it in another room during focus periods, silence notifications, or install apps that block time-wasting features. If social media is a temptation, set strict boundaries or schedule limited windows for use. If your workspace is cluttered, simplify and organize it. The goal is to make the path of least resistance the path of focus. The easier you make concentration, the less you rely on willpower, and the more consistently you follow through. Understanding the cost of distractions strengthens your commitment to remove them. Every time you check your phone unnecessarily, switch between tasks, or succumb to a small interruption, you pay a hidden price. These tiny moments accumulate into lost hours, fragmented attention, and diminished quality in your work. The time lost to distraction is rarely recovered, and the momentum it steals can derail long-term goals. When you internalize the true cost, the effort required to remove distractions becomes obvious and necessary. Distractions do more than waste time. They shape your behavior and mindset. Each time you give in, your brain associates comfort with avoidance rather than effort. You train yourself to seek immediate pleasure instead of long-term gain. When distractions dominate, habits weaken, decisions get delayed, and priorities shift unconsciously. By removing distractions at the source, you prevent this erosion of focus and allow your actions to align with your goals. This is not just about efficiency. It is about building the kind of mental resilience that supports sustained success. It's important to treat distraction removal as a habit itself, not a one-time effort. Each day brings new challenges, new stimuli, and new potential interruptions. By establishing a consistent system, you make focus easier to maintain. Set your environment intentionally every morning or the night before. Decide which tools, apps, or environments support your work and which do not. Train yourself to recognize early signs of distraction and eliminate them immediately, rather than waiting until they derail your progress. Consistency and preparation strengthens your ability to remain undistracted under pressure. Another key principle is structuring your work into blocks of concentrated effort. Distractions are less likely to invade a mind that is deeply engaged. Use time blocks where you commit to a single task, minimizing external and internal interruptions. During these periods, silence phones, close irrelevant tabs, and remove anything that might break your focus. The combination of intentional environment design and focused effort creates a flow state that is nearly impossible to achieve when distractions are allowed to persist. Internal distractions are just as important as external ones. Thoughts, worries, and emotional reactions can pull you away from the task at hand. Anticipate these internal interruptions and create strategies to manage them. Journaling, scheduled reflection, or brief mental resets can help clear cluttered thoughts before they hijack your focus. Recognize that mental distractions often stem from unfinished tasks, uncertainty, or unresolved concerns. Address them proactively rather than letting them invade your working time. Building awareness around your triggers is critical. You can only remove distractions you understand. Notice patterns. When does your attention usually wander? What types of tasks make you susceptible to interruption? How do environmental cues influence your behavior? By mapping out these triggers, you can implement preemptive measures. For example, if notifications consistently pull you away during high-focus work, adjust your device settings before starting. If background noise disrupts concentration, find a quieter space or use sound blocking tools. Distraction removal also improves decision-making. Fragmented attention leads to rushed judgments, errors, and incomplete work. When focus is protected, you process information more clearly, evaluate options more effectively, and execute with precision. Your productivity no longer relies on brute force willpower, but on smart design. This shift allows you to sustain effort over long periods without burning out or losing clarity. An often overlooked aspect is managing social distractions. People with good intentions may still pull you off track. Learning to set boundaries politely but firmly protects your time. Communicate clearly when you need uninterrupted focus. Schedule meetings, calls, and social interactions strategically. Not every interruption needs to be avoided, but every choice about when to engage should be deliberate. Respecting your own boundaries signals to others that your time and priorities are valuable. Removing distractions is also about replacing them with purpose. Idle moments are where distraction sneaks in. Fill your day with structured, meaningful tasks, so there's less room for deviation. When you have a clear plan and defined priorities, you no longer drift toward irrelevant stimuli. Every action serves a goal. Momentum grows. Focus becomes the default rather than the exception. Over time, this habit transforms your relationship with productivity. You no longer rely on fleeting motivation or discipline alone. You've designed a life where focus is the path of least resistance. You achieve more, stress less, and operate with intentionality. Each distraction prevented is energy preserved. Each interruption removed is progress safeguarded. This approach compounds, producing results far beyond what bursts of effort alone can achieve. Ultimately, removing distractions before they start is about creating conditions where your best self can show up consistently. It is not about restriction or deprivation. It is about aligning your environment and mind with the person you want to become. By protecting your attention, you build habits, strengthen focus, and gain control over your life. The power to direct your energy toward meaningful work becomes automatic, and your ability to follow through becomes unshakable. Distraction no longer dictates your day. Your intentional choices do. Number 10. Act immediately without seeking motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like weather, sunny one moment, stormy the next. Waiting for it to appear before taking action is a trap that keeps most people stagnant. The reality is that action doesn't depend on feeling inspired. It depends on a decision to move, regardless of emotional state. Progress is never a result of waiting for motivation to arrive. It is a result of acting immediately, repeatedly, and decisively. When you act without seeking motivation, you stop relying on external conditions to dictate your success. You take control of your life in a way that is steady, predictable, and unstoppable. Action creates momentum, and momentum generates motivation naturally. Motivation is often mistaken as a precursor to effort, but in truth, it is a byproduct of starting. The first step, the smallest movement forward, triggers a chain reaction in your mind and body. Your brain rewards itself with the sense of accomplishment. Your energy rises, and focus sharpens. Those who wait for motivation rarely experience this cycle because they refuse to initiate the first step. Acting immediately flips the sequence. You move, and motivation follows, instead of the other way around. Immediate action also prevents procrastination from taking root. Every delay, no matter how small, reinforces avoidance as a habit. Thoughts like "I'll do it later" or "I need to feel ready" accumulate and grow stronger over time. They create a mental pattern that convinces you it's okay to postpone responsibilities indefinitely. By acting immediately, you interrupt this pattern. You establish a new standard. Decisions are executed, not defer. You build a reputation with yourself that your word matters and that you follow through without hesitation. The moment you act without waiting for motivation, fear loses power. Fear often masquerades as a lack of readiness. You feel unsure, hesitant, or intimidated, and your mind tells you to wait until conditions are perfect. But there is no perfect condition. Waiting only prolongs the discomfort and gives fear more opportunity to influence you. When action comes first, you discover that fear diminishes in motion. The discomfort exists only at the start. Once you begin, resistance fades and clarity emerges. This is the difference between someone who dreams and someone who achieves. Habits are strengthened when action is prioritized over feeling. Relying on emotional states to dictate behavior is fragile. Motivation fluctuates, energy levels dip, and distractions interfere. But when you decide that action is non-negotiable, you build a habit of movement that does not depend on how you feel. Every completed task reinforces your identity as a person who follows through, someone who does what needs to be done regardless of internal conditions. Over time, this consistency compounds into skill, confidence, and reliability. Immediate action also sharpens decision-making. The longer you delay, the more you rationalize, overthink, or second-guess. Your mind creates scenarios, evaluates options excessively, and convinces you to wait for a better moment. Acting right away cuts through the clutter. It forces clarity, forces prioritization, and forces commitment. You quickly see what works, what doesn't, and where adjustments are needed. The learning curve accelerates because experience is gained through doing, not planning endlessly or waiting for perfect conditions. Every moment of inaction is a moment lost. Time doesn't wait, and opportunities rarely repeat. Waiting for motivation is a subtle form of self-sabotage disguised as preparation. Those who act immediately seize the advantage that indecision forfeits. They move while others hesitate. They practice while others delay. They grow while others stay stuck. Action becomes a form of leverage that compounds faster than planning, reflection, or inspiration ever could. The ability to act immediately is a skill that can be developed. Start by noticing small tasks you usually delay. Complete them the moment they appear. Respond to emails, make calls, begin projects, or start workouts without pausing to debate whether you feel like it. These small wins build neural pathways that make decisive action easier over time. You teach yourself that you can trust your own initiative, that your instincts are reliable, and that progress is always possible without waiting for permission from your emotions. Immediate action also transforms your relationship with resistance. Resistance is inevitable. Every worthwhile pursuit meets some form of friction. Waiting for motivation is an attempt to avoid resistance, but it never disappears. Acting instantly teaches you that resistance can be handled, mitigated, or even embraced. You discover that the tension before beginning is temporary, and the reward lies in moving through it. Resistance becomes a sign that you are on the right path, rather than a reason to stop. Your confidence grows when action takes priority over motivation. Each completed task proves your capability. Each follow-through reinforces self-trust. You no longer doubt your ability to start or finish, because you've built a track record of responding decisively. Motivation becomes supplementary rather than essential. You become someone who doesn't need external pushes to progress, because your actions themselves generate internal momentum. The compounding effect of acting immediately cannot be overstated. One task completed without hesitation leads to another. One decision executed without delay creates clarity for the next. One commitment followed through strengthens self-discipline. Over weeks and months, this pattern transforms ordinary routines into extraordinary results. You move through life with energy, focus, and direction that others struggle to maintain. Progress becomes inevitable because it is no longer dependent on the unpredictability of motivation. Immediate action also reduces regret. Many people look back and wish they had started sooner. They regret opportunities they let pass and progress they delayed. Acting without waiting ensures that you use time effectively. Every step forward, no matter how small, builds toward the future you desire. Regret diminishes because you've made a choice to move when you could have remained idle. Each action is a statement. You are committed, capable, and unstoppable. When you integrate this approach into your life, you stop overthinking, overplanning, and overwaiting. You develop a bias toward action. You understand that motion produces results, while waiting produces only uncertainty. You train yourself to respond to challenges decisively and to begin projects immediately. You accept that effort is the bridge between desire and outcome, and the bridge must be crossed, regardless of motivation. Acting immediately without seeking motivation is not reckless. It is intentional. It is the conscious decision to prioritize what matters over fleeting feelings. It is the understanding that momentum is born from movement, not mood. It is the commitment to prove your reliability to yourself. By doing this consistently, you create a life where opportunities are seized, growth is constant, and your potential is no longer limited by waiting for external or internal signals. This is how lasting progress is achieved, through action that precedes emotion, through courage that doesn't pause for inspiration, and through consistency that outperforms hesitation.